Have you ever sat in a room so silent that you could hear your own heartbeat? That moment where the world stops buzzing and you're just there breathing, existing. Silence makes people uncomfortable. We rush to fill it with noise, conversations, music, scrolling through our phones, because silence demands something from us. It asks us to be present. It asks us to trust, and trust, that's hard. We often associate silence with weakness. Think about it. How many times have you heard phrases like speak up for yourself or the loudest person in the room is the most powerful? We are conditioned to believe that if we're not vocal, if we're not constantly proving ourselves, we're being overlooked or underestimated. But here's the truth. Silence is not the absence of strength. It is the presence of power. Silence is the space where wisdom grows. It's the pause between impulse and action, the moment where we choose understanding over reaction. In a world where people talk over each other, where quick responses are valued more than thoughtful ones, silence gives us an edge. It allows us to observe, to absorb, and most importantly, to respond with intention rather than reflex. Think about the people who have truly influenced you, the ones whose words carried weight. Were they the ones who spoke just to fill the air, or were they the ones who spoke only when it mattered? There's a reason why we lean in when a person who is usually silent decides to speak. It's because we trust that their words have been carefully chosen. Silence also builds resilience. When you can sit in silence without rushing to fix, explain, or defend, you develop emotional strength. You learn to handle discomfort, to navigate uncertainty, and to trust that you don't have to prove yourself in every moment. There is immense power in being the person who doesn't react to every little thing, who holds space instead of filling it, who listens rather than interrupts. And let's talk about the discipline of silence. It's easy to react. It's easy to lash out, to argue, to constantly assert your opinions, but it takes discipline to stay quiet when you could easily defend yourself. It takes confidence to hold your ground without needing to explain yourself. That kind of silence is not passive, it's an active choice. Silence is not weakness, it is strength wrapped in patience, wisdom, and self-control. And when you master it, you'll realize that you don't need to chase attention, validation, or approval, because true power doesn't need to announce itself. It simply exists. We live in a world that celebrates instant gratification. We want fast results, quick answers, and immediate rewards. If something doesn't happen now, we feel like we're falling behind. But here's the truth. Nothing truly valuable happens overnight. Everything worth having, everything that lasts, requires time to grow. And that's where patience comes in. Patience is not just about waiting. It's about how you wait. It's easy to wait when you know exactly when something will happen. It's much harder to wait when there's uncertainty, when you're not sure if or when things will fall into place. But trusting in timing means understanding that things unfold exactly as they should, even when it doesn't match your personal timeline. Think about nature. A seed doesn't grow into a tree in a day. It takes time, sunlight, water, care, and most importantly, patience. You don't dig up the seed every day to check if it's growing. You trust the process. The same is true for our dreams, our relationships, our personal growth. The more we try to force things before their time, the more resistance we create. Have you ever looked back on something you desperately wanted only to realize later that it wouldn't have served you in the way you thought? Maybe a job you didn't get, a relationship that didn't work out, or an opportunity that passed you by. At the time, it felt like a loss, but later, with time and perspective, you saw that life had something better in store. That's the beauty of patience. It allows life to reveal its plans for you rather than you trying to control everything. Trusting in timing also means letting go of comparison. It's easy to look around and feel like other people are moving faster, getting promotions, finding love, achieving their goals, but their timeline is not yours. Your journey is unfolding exactly the way it's meant to, and what's meant for you will never miss you. When you practice patience, you replace anxiety with peace. You stop rushing, stop forcing, and instead you allow things to come together naturally. That doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing. It means you do the work, you show up every day, and then you trust that when the time is right, everything will fall into place. Because the truth is, timing is everything. And the things that are truly meant for you, they will arrive at the perfect moment, not a second too early, not a second too late. Most of us hear, but few of us truly listen. There's a difference. Hearing is passive, it's simply perceiving sound. But listening, that's an active, intentional practice. And the key to real listening is silence. We live in a noisy world. Conversations often feel like competitions where we're not really listening to understand, but rather waiting for our turn to speak. We're conditioned to believe that the louder we are, the more we'll be heard. But in reality, the people who listen, who genuinely take in what others are saying, are the ones who hold the most power in a conversation. Silence allows us to hear beyond words. It gives us the space to pick up on emotions, on unspoken fears, on what's really being communicated beneath the surface. Have you ever had someone truly listen to you? Someone who didn't interrupt, didn't jump in with advice, but simply held space for you? It feels different. It feels safe. That's the power of deep listening. And deep listening isn't just about understanding others, it's also about understanding yourself. When you create silence in your life, you start to hear your own thoughts more clearly. You recognize your inner voice, your intuition, the quiet nudges that get drowned out by the constant chatter of the world. You gain clarity, not by forcing answers, but by making space for them to emerge. Let's take a moment to think about some of the wisest people in history, leaders, thinkers, and visionaries. They weren't the ones constantly talking. They were the ones who observed, who reflected, who spoke only when they had something meaningful to say. Their words carried weight because they were born from silence and deep listening. But here's the challenge: silence can be uncomfortable. It forces us to sit with our thoughts, to confront things we'd rather ignore. That's why so many of us fill every quiet moment with distractions, music, scrolling, talking. But when we avoid silence, we also avoid the wisdom it brings. So how do we use silence as a tool for deep listening? Practice intentional pauses. Instead of rushing to respond in conversations, take a breath. Let there be a moment of silence before you speak. Listen without planning your response. So often we listen while simultaneously thinking of what we're going to say next. Try instead to focus entirely on the other person. Create quiet moments in your day. Set aside time without distractions. No phone, no music, just silence. Let your thoughts settle. Observe what's unspoken. Pay attention to body language, tone, and the gaps between words. Sometimes what isn't said speaks the loudest. When you master the ability to sit in silence and truly listen, both to others and to yourself, you tap into a whole new level of awareness. You become the person people trust, the one whose words matter because they come from a place of understanding. Silence isn't empty, it's full of answers, but you have to be willing to listen. Control is an illusion we cling to because it makes us feel safe. We plan, we structure, we try to predict every possible outcome, believing that if we just work hard enough, think long enough, or push hard enough, life will unfold exactly as we want. But the truth? The more we try to control everything, the more we suffer. Letting go of control does not mean giving up. It does not mean sitting back and waiting for life to happen to you. It means understanding the difference between what is yours to change and what is not. It means releasing the tight grip of fear and trusting that sometimes things have a way of working out far better than you could have orchestrated on your own. Why do we struggle with letting go? We want certainty. We want guarantees. We want to know that if we put in the effort, we will get the exact outcome we desire, but life doesn't work that way. The job we thought we needed might slip away. The relationship we fought for might not last. The plans we carefully mapped out might fall apart in an instant, and that's terrifying. Until you realize that sometimes not getting what you want is the greatest gift life can give you. Think about a time when you were desperate for something to work out. Maybe it was a job, a relationship, an opportunity. You held on to it so tightly, convinced that without it, you wouldn't be okay. And then when it didn't work out, when life forced you to let go, something better came along. Maybe it took time, maybe it was painful. But looking back, you can see that things unfolded in a way that served you. The more you force, the more resistance you create. Have you ever tried to force something before it's time? Maybe you pushed for a decision, pressured a relationship, or obsessed over an outcome. And what happened? More stress, more frustration, more resistance. Life has a way of showing us that forcing things only creates tension. Letting go means stepping into a space of trust. It means recognizing that life is not something to be controlled, it's something to be experienced. It means making peace with uncertainty and understanding that just because you don't see the full picture yet doesn't mean things aren't falling into place. How do we let go? Shift from control to trust. Instead of asking, how can I make this happen? Ask, how can I trust that what's meant for me will come? Detach from outcomes. It's okay to have goals and dreams, but hold them loosely. Instead of saying this must happen, say, if this is meant for me, it will. Accept what you cannot change. Worrying doesn't change the outcome. Anxiety doesn't fix problems. Learn to recognize when you're holding on to something that's not in your hands. Create space for something better. When you let go of control, you open yourself up to possibilities you couldn't have imagined. You make room for something greater. In a world that constantly pulls us in 1,000 directions, being present feels like a lost art. We live in an age of distraction. Our phones buzz with notifications, our minds race with to-do lists, and we are often physically in one place while our thoughts are miles away. But here's the truth. Life is only ever happening in the present moment. Not in the past we keep revisiting, not in the future we keep chasing. Right here, right now. Yet, how often do we truly experience it? Why do we struggle to be present? We struggle with presence because our minds are conditioned to dwell in two places, the past and the future. We replay old conversations, regrets, and mistakes, trying to rewrite what can't be changed. Or we fast forward into the unknown, worrying about things that haven't even happened yet. Either way, we miss what's right in front of us. Think about it. How many times have you gone through a day on autopilot? You wake up, go through the motions, scroll through your phone, half listen to conversations, and suddenly the day is over. But were you truly there for any of it? Were you fully engaged in the moments that make up your life? Presence is a gift, but it's one we rarely unwrap. The power of being fully present. When you are present, life becomes richer. A simple conversation with a loved one feels more meaningful because you're not thinking about your next meeting. A walk outside feels different when you actually notice the sky, the air, the sounds around you. Food tastes better when you slow down to enjoy it. Even challenges become easier to navigate because you're not carrying the weight of past regrets or future anxieties. You're simply dealing with what's in front of you. Being present also transforms your relationships. Have you ever talked to someone who was clearly distracted. Maybe they were nodding along, but not really hearing you. It feels frustrating, right? Now think of the opposite, someone who gives you their full attention, who makes you feel seen, heard, and valued. That's the power of presence. It deepens connections, fosters understanding, and creates moments that truly matter. How do we cultivate presence? Slow down. Rushing through life is the fastest way to miss it. Take deep breaths, pause between tasks, and move with intention. Put away distractions. The world won't end if you put your phone down. Turn it off during conversations, meals, or quiet moments. Be where your feet are. Practice active listening. Instead of thinking about what you'll say next, really listen to the person in front of you. Notice their tone, their expressions, their emotions. Engage your senses. Notice the warmth of the sun on your skin, the sound of laughter, the taste of your food. The more you engage your senses, the more grounded you become in the present moment. Let go of the need to control. The present moment is not something to be controlled. It's something to be experienced. Accept it as it is without trying to force it to be different. So take a deep breath. Feel your body where it is. Notice what's around you, because this moment, right here, right now, is your life. And when you fully embrace it, you realize that you don't have to wait for happiness, clarity, or peace. They've been here all along. Life is not something to be forced. It is something to be allowed. It unfolds in its own time, in its own way. And when we try to control it, we only create resistance. But when we embrace silence, trust in timing, listen deeply, let go of control, and stay fully present, everything we need comes to us naturally. Silence is not emptiness, it is space for wisdom to grow. Patience is not passivity, it is trust in the unfolding of life. Presence is not a luxury, it is the only way to truly experience the moments that make up our lives. So instead of chasing, allow. Instead of reacting, listen. Instead of forcing, trust. Because the most beautiful things in life don't come from grasping, controlling, or rushing. They come when we create space, stay still, and allow life to meet us exactly where we are. Stay silent, be patient, be present. Everything will come to you naturally.